let's just talk about what we witnessed last night, Ethan. 83 to 123, I think, is what ended up being the final score for that Clippers game. Devin Vassell was the leading scorer with 14 points. Um, and yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. Because it's like we didn't get him the ball enough. He's kind of been, the key 20-point guy for us in the 3 games that we've seen this season. And then as well, what we saw from him in the preseason and the contract that he got going into this season, it all really ties into last year as well, because we only got 40 games then. Um, Obviously, Devin has been kind of the initiator for us offensively. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to dismiss Wembenyama because obviously he's the golden goose, if you will, and the emphasis is getting him the ball as well too. But he's going to have some adjustments. We even saw in the Rockets game, not to jump all over the place here, but we even saw in the Rockets game that it took him a little bit to get going. Now he showed up in the clutch, and that's what matters. But kind of the steadiness of this season has been Devin Vassell, and I think that's going to be a theme throughout this season. So when you're not able to get him going, and then you combine that with turnovers, miscommunications on offense and defense, you're going to be down 30 for most of the game,
Yeah,
which is what happened.
it was definitely a rough one to watch, Jude. I mean, I watched the first half um, the entire way through, and then kind of watched the highlights for the second half. Like I was kind of in and out of the game because it was a runaway in favor of the Clippers, and I really think our guys, and this is not an excuse. I mean, we have to be more mature than this and be better prepared than this, but they were really caught off guard by how aggressive the Clippers came out to play. And it's rare that we see a fully healthy Clippers team, and that's what this was. Paul
Yeah.
George, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, Zubats, and their array of depth wings that are all defensive specialists and 3-point specialists. Like they were swarming our guys and pressuring Sohan and Devin early. And those are, as everyone knows, our primary ball handlers and playmakers. So they just couldn't find any openings. It felt like they were caught. Like I think we were texting back and forth, and you said they look like deer in headlights right now. And I think that's just the most accurate representation of our body language and why our offense looked so. It was just a complete disarray the entire time. And Devin
Yeah.
was a bright spot in that he had 6 of 10. He was aggressive a couple times in the first half. He tried to get our momentum going, at a couple and ones, a couple tough jelly layups through contact
Yep.
on
Yep.
Kawhi and Zubats. And I thought maybe we can get a run going from here, but it just never worked out. And then on top of it, we were hitting back iron a lot. And again,
Mm-hmm.
not an excuse, but it just felt like our shots were all off collectively, only 33% from three, where they were 38%. And then just the cherry on top, Jude, something that no team can overcome is the turnovers. Like you said, 25. And like I gave the Clippers credit defensively, but at the same time, there were just a lot of dumb mistakes, a lot of bad passes, poorly timed passes, and just a lack of deliberation with our decision making, and that's from top to bottom. I was hoping maybe Trey would have a bigger impact coming in, and we'll get into his impact later on in the show. But his impact was not felt as strongly I felt in this Clippers game. Like he came in, and it was just the same usual bad basketball that we saw from the starters.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. What I had written down for that game was they punched us in the mouth, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, to open with the way that they played us, and
Yep.
then they bullied us. Everybody,
Yes.
Zubox inside, Kawhi and PG. We're taking advantage. Just some stuff that pops into my mind. Sohan still getting caught behind screens, and that's the thing with Trey too. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to dump too much. He jumped too far ahead here, but a lot of our guys were getting beat. In one-on-one situations with Kawhi and PG, or just them moving in the offense. Which, like you said, it's not necessarily. We don't want to make excuses, but it does kind of tie into kind of the Luka Kyrie thing that we talked about after the Mavs. Like we said, we saw the opening season press conference. We even said it, in our season preview and everything. Like the mentality is different this year, so it's not like we're just going to be like, oh, they're young, but at the same time, the guys that they're getting beat against in those situations are better than them as of right now. But still, you would like to see. I would still like to see them play better.
Mm-hmm.
in especially than the way that they played last night against those guys. Whenever it comes to guarding, Kawhi and PG on defense and maybe getting caught up in screens in their offense. But on top of that, after they punched us in the mouth and did whatever they wanted to, bullying us physically on offense and defense, I'd say. Really, that just allowed them to beat us down mentally and physically. You could see the frustration from everybody on the court. Really, the most, hate to call them out, but I mean, it's just the truth. Like last night, the most frustration I saw was definitely from Jeremy. I saw his hands up like this so many times. And a lot of that did have to do with miscommunications. Sometimes there were passes that he made that it seemed like somebody else should have been there. But sometimes it was the other way around, and he kind of still had that same reaction. And we can sit here and be super critical about it, Ethan. And I'm not saying that that's something I don't want to see improve, because that is something I want to see improve. But at the same time, he's 20 years old in this situation, playing point guard for the first time. So it does make a little bit of sense. But going back to the Clippers game, because of them beating us mentally and physically, they made us frustrated and discouraged. And that's how they beat us mentally and physically. And we just could not bounce back. This was a first round KO, and just like there was no ref to stop it. They were just hammer fisting us for 3 quarters. like there was there was nobody pulling them off saying it's over. We just had to deal with it, and we did not have a response. So that was probably the most disappointing thing of this game. But at the same time, we'll see on Tuesday. We'll see tomorrow night on TNT without Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Probably on Thursday they're going to have to play Devin. But at least tomorrow night it should just be KD and Nurkic and kind of the rest of the Suns roster. We'll see how they bounce back, because it is a new team. And it is really like one of the things that I know it's a lot of returning players, but as you and I, in our preseason kind of preview predictions, there was some episode, I can't remember exactly which one, we were kind of talking about how, just the theme that we've already kind of been talking about in this one, less excuses whenever it came to this season. And while that is definitely still like, there's still a higher standard, I think even if you were to look at just the first 10 minutes of this in comparison to how we talked about the team last year, if you went and watched some of our videos, it's even different. But at the same time, I'm losing my train of thought here, Ethan. Remind me where I was at.
You were saying there's no excuses, but we were talking earlier in the season that
But this is where I was getting. Thank you. You got me there. This lineup and regardless of the point Sohan thing, that's not even what I'm talking about. Like last year, Jeremy, Keldon, Devin, and Zach didn't even play together that much. Like I forget, you sent me a stat like after we had that conversation where it was like they had only played 38 minutes together or something last season. It was a lot less than we expected. So the point that I'm getting to here is they are playing together for the first time. And there's going to be, when you take in that context, it makes last night a little bit less surprising, not excusable whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying. But if, like, for example, if tomorrow night they come out and look a lot better, it might have just been inevitable that they were going to have one of these games early in the season when you consider the context. Does that make sense?
For sure. First away game. The starting lineup doesn't have much experience together. It's against a really stacked, solid Clippers team. And, Wemby's a rookie, and like you said, not a lot of experience between the rest of the guys. They're just caught off guard. But the one last thing I will want to hit on, Jude, on top of what you just said, as far as the no excuses thing, just to address it, Jeremy cannot have a 0-point game ever. If he's gonna be the starting point guard, you cannot score 0 points. And Keldon Johnson can't be 1 for 9. He 1 for 5 from 3-point land. Cumulatively, the starting unit only hit 3 3-pointers. That's not going to work. And Zach Lowe talked about today on NBA Today. He claims that Wemby doesn't have enough shooting around him in that starting unit. I disagree. I think Zach's a capable shooter. I think Keldon and Devin are capable shooters, as well as Wemby. And Sohan at time from time. He's not a 3-point shooter. We know that. But they can't have a game like this where they go only 3 total threes made in one game. That's just not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree on that front and on the front where you talked about their stat line. It's not just about their stat line, but like Sohan only took 2 shots,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because, like I said, they punched us in
Frustrated.
the mouth, they bullied us, and then they beat us up mentally and physically, and they basically made us quit. Like, I mean, I hate
No,
to
you're right.
say that, but that's what happened. And I'm not gonna say that if I was in the same shoes, I might do the same thing. To be
Yeah,
completely honest with you, like
it's
especially of getting
completely understandable.
harassed by Kawhi and PG,
Yeah,
and Russ. And that's another thing we'll get into. But it was just tough, man.
yeah. Papa dressed it
It's
too in
not
his
an
post.
excuse. It's not an
No.
excuse that can't happen with the Jeremy's got to take more shots than that in general. You can't just completely give up.